For you. All right. Commissioner Runner, if you may please lead us in a prayer and a pledge. He gives a special prayer here today for our farmers as we are honoring 4-H.
Father, bless the land you have given me. As I tend each crop and critter, you're the one that helps them grow. Steer the rain clouds in the right direction and amount, for some have too much and some have too little. Give the farmer strength, grit, and keep them from harm's way. If you ate today, thank a farmer. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everyone.
These proceedings are being recorded for the sole purpose of preparing accurate written minutes. Recordings are overwritten following approval of the minutes, eliminating all unofficial records of these proceedings. Your first item is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting held March 14th, 2024. Noting a correction to the expenditures to the general fund clearing account dated March 14th, 2024. The correct total should be $2,303,584.99.
Motion to change. Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Sifrano?
Yes. We do have a guest here today. First, we will call up the 4-H. I know we have a proclamation here to be adopted and read. So I think what we'll do is, how about we do this? We'll read the proclamation. And then we'll call the 4-H up here. I think they would like to do their 4-H pledge. Actually, we're gonna let you sit in these seats here, so. And you can run the rest of the meeting for us. You'll see how happy you are to go back to 4-H. Robert?
Yes. All right. Whereas the youth of Carbon County are one of the county's most valuable resources. And whereas 4-H members contribute to environmental improvement, community service, food production, and participate in programs that aid in youth development, health, nutrition, home improvement, and family relationships. And whereas, as a result of international cooperation with many countries, 4-H is also contributing to world understanding. And whereas in the process, 4-H youth apply leadership skills, acquire a positive self-concept, and learn to respect and work effectively with others. And whereas throughout the state of Pennsylvania, the week of March 17 through March 23rd has been proclaimed 4-H week in Pennsylvania. Now, therefore, the Carbon County Board of Commissioners proclaimed the week of March 17 to 23rd, 2024 as 4-H week in Carbon County and urge all citizens to give recognition to the people involved in the 4-H program. Given under our hand and seal the county of Carbon this 22nd day of February 2024.
Motion to adopt the proclamation.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Sifrano?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to vote.
Wait, do we give them each of them first?
That's a month.
Oh, wow.
Thank you very much.
Buddy, come right behind here. You can do your great clues. Thank you. How about we do this? We'll move to the outside and let you sit down and do the pledge.
Yeah.
You can have
You're saying to do the pledge. I don't know how you really do that. And then you can sit down after you do the pledge. Okay?
I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to better loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living. For my club, my community, my country, and my world.
Why don't you ladies have a seat? Well, we've been replaced.
There's history in Carbon County. We'll be back in half. You want that?
Then you guys go on each side.
Oh, you want to turn that off?
Sorry.
You want to pull that up?
Because you're still,
We can turn that off.
did you, can you just one second?
Oh, here we go.
Looks much better. Much better.
Ready, everybody? This is right.
Yeah, you can take the iPad down if you wish.
No, we're good.
See who we're keeping. Thank you. Anyone else?
One more. Smile, yeah, done great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send you one. One more. Smile, 1, 2, 3.
Sitting? No? Okay, I'm gonna go take comment.
You said you were gonna do this.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm the president of both the Mahoning Valley Community Club and the Livestock Club. I'm involved in a lot. I go to 4-H camp. I go to the state leadership conference out in SLC. I do Rabbits and KV Club, market lambs, and dairy beef. And then I also do sewing, crocheting, and a whole bunch of others. I'm Daphne. I am the secretary of both the Mahoning Valley 4-H Club and the Livestock Club. I've also gone to 4-H camp, SLC. I've gone to SLC Junior in the past. I'm involved with the market lamb, dairy beef, rabbits and KV, and poultry. And I've done sewing and crocheting and gardening and some other stuff.
My name is Kaden Scraver, and I did potato judging, and I'm going to show pigs and sheep.
Want to say thank you to our commissioners. I'm the 4-H educator for Carbon County. We just want to show our appreciation for allowing us to come here and everyone's support in the community as we continue to grow the program and get the word out that how great 4-H is. And you can see in some of our members all the different opportunities that there are, and it just keeps on growing with their participation. So
This time, I think we should introduce Steve Lacey from Penn State Extension Office, who oversees several of the county 4-H offices and then conservation office.
So again, thank you to our commissioners here as well for, supporting, 4-H and Penn State Extension in the county, because without their support, we wouldn't be able to do, the programming and the, see the great things that our youth are doing, in the county with their program and staying busy. And I have a couple guests with me as well. So we have Kathy Henderson. She's an advisory council member for Penn State Extension in Carbon County and a 4-H alum.
Yep.
So, and then Monroe Cressley, also advisory council member and former, you were a 4-H leader for many years. 47. So, so not only takes the dedication, we have 2 volunteers here as well. It takes the dedication of the volunteers as well, to support this program, because without them, we wouldn't be able to reach as many kids in the county. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Want to thank the 4-H leaders for their leadership and spending so much time with our youth and helping to develop that leadership programs and what they do. And I don't think most people realize the amount of work that these young people put in, not only girls and boys. I don't know, boys are all at school working hard, but they are all really hardworking kids. And I'd be, if I don't promote your 4-H auction that we have every August, first Saturday in August, I think it is this.
August 10th this year.
August 10th.
Yeah, and I am the proud 50% owner of a goat from last year. Donated to the granddaughter, really, and our coroner sees that goat almost every day on his little farm there. So come out and support these kids when they have their auction. If you don't know what the 4-H auction is, they the animals at the auction off, they have what they call a market value. Let's say the market value of a goat is $100. Hauser auctioneers have always volunteered their time to do the 4-H auction. They come out and they'll auction off the goats and the beef and the etc. And if you bid $200 for that goat, market value is $100. You pay the $100 if you sell it back to the market, or you can pay the whole $200 and it goes back, to the kid. If it goes to a buyback program, it goes to market. It's a sad day for a lot of the students because they live with these animals for a year, basically, and raising them, tracking their feed, vet bill, everything, and it's a lot of hard work cleaning up after them, and they've got competition and clean stalls and everything, but if you wanna buy an animal, if it goes back to the market, the extra money goes back to the kids. That extra $100 you might pay or $1,000 or more. You don't wanna spend $250 for a rabbit, give it back to the kid. Wives get a little upset over you. You paid what for rabbit? And gave it back. It's the idea that, it rewards the kids for hard work and developing their leadership. So to me, every penny spent on purchasing an animal is well worth it. So it's expensive at times, but it shows the kids in the 4-H program that they can be rewarded for hard work. So.
You said all.
I mean, the only thing that I wanna say, like, I went to one of their meetings at one time, and they presented everything, like the Afghans and the pillows that he's made, and he's made our pillowcases, and I don't know if you wanna explain a little bit how the pillowcases went, that he's made 2 of them, and you gave one away, so they are community minded, it's not just 100% farm, I mean, they're out to help the entire community. So if you wanna hit a little on that, how what you did with that.
Alright, so we have like a sewing camp during the summer. It's like a week long. They have fabric that's been donated and they have sewing machines, a little old, but they work. Sometimes.
It just got repaired, you're okay.
Right. But so we always start off with a simple project. So we'll make 2 pillowcases. We pick our own designs, the leaders help us. And then not designs, we pick our own fabric. And then whatever one you like better, you kind of keep or you can give away. So you get to keep one and then you get to give one to, what is it again?
I don't know who you gave it to this time, was it to
I
the,
think it's the same people every year.
was it to the home or the homeless, or what?
Yeah, to the homeless, so they have, yeah.
We also helped at the Lions Ham dinner recently,
Yes.
community service projects, cleaning up the Grange, fire company events, so they're a little bit everywhere and anywhere in the county.
Yes, they are. We'll see them often. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, ladies. Want to run the rest of the meeting?
No. The motion, okay, so all you gotta do after she reads the motion, just say yes, well, we got.
Okay. Thank you, proclamation.
Yeah, we got that.
Vote, your proclamation.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we've got that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you. Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
When did you get that for you?
Keeping with the 4-H theme, I think we should open bids on Wayne. Oh, I will go 250.
Buyback.
Thanks a lot. He was one of the boys that I remember when I started going to these programs and he got involved in going to the events. Luke was about this big, and about that much bigger than me. I've seen a lot of these kids that have gone through the program over like 20+ years. Probably about 24, 25 years now. And a lot of the parents, they are now parents and have kids in the program, so. Welcome back, Luke.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. With that, are there any other guests concerning county business? Hearing none,
Next item is the report of executive session, Phil.
there was one on Thursday, March 14th at 1:30 PM in the afternoon, obviously, and that was for personnel.
Department reports. The first item, budget transfers for 2023 and 2024.
Motion approved.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
There are no supplemental appropriations. Expenditures approval of check numbers 242, 253 through 242, 442 for expenditures to the general fund clearing account totaling $5,231,656.48.
Motion approved.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
The treasurer's report.
Motion approved.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
The personnel report for county departments.
Motion approved.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
The acknowledgements for courts and row offices.
Motion acknowledged.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
Yeah.
Mr. Notstein?
yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
Correspondence was received as listed. Copies will be made available to the press upon request. Next item, District Court Office, an agreement with ESCO Security for approval and execution. Agreement with ESCO Security to install 2 wireless panic buttons and set up the existing Honeywell control panel at the District Court Lansford office at a total cost of $1,083, which will be funded by the fiscal year 2024 AOPC security grant. This is under CoreStars number 040 E23-201.
Motion approved and execute.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
Planning and Development for approval and execution, revision request number 9 for CDBG program fiscal year 2019, contract number 73823 for Lehighton Borough. Moving $14,710.40 from the Senior Center Roof Project to clearance and demolition of 135, 139 North First Street to spend the funds in a more timely manner.
Motion approved and execute.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
The Solicitor's Report.
Thank you. First, under the Area Agency on Aging, seeking a motion for approval and execution of an agreement for the use of the facility and to provide catering services for a senior workshop hosted by Link on June 25th, 2024 at 9:30 a.m. The Franklin Township Volunteer Fire Company in Lehighton, Pennsylvania, at a rate of $17 per person. The facility rental fee is $300 plus a $100 cleaning fee, and the security deposit was waived.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
Next, under Children and Youth, seeking a motion for approval and execution of an agreement with Service Access Management Incorporated of Reading, Pennsylvania, to provide fiscal consulting services to the Carbon County Children and Youth Services Department, effective March 25th through May 31st of 2024. Fees are $15,000 for the period of March 25th, 2024 through April 30th, 2024, and $15,000 for May 1st, 2024 through May 31st, 2024, with further negotiation to extend the terms on a more permanent basis.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
And we've received 5 banner requests, so I'll call for a motion for approval and execution of the 5 banner requests as listed as items 120 through 124 of 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve and execute 120 through 124.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
For the coroner, seeking a motion for approval and execution of a lease agreement between the County of Carbon and St. Luke's Hospital of Lehighton, Pennsylvania, for a lease of approximately 794 square feet within the property on an exclusive and shared use of medical office space. This area within the property will be used for the purpose of providing county coroner services and related services. The term of the lease will commence on March 1st, 2024 and continue for a period of 1 year and automatically renew for an additional 1-year period. There's no fee for the use of the premises provided the county continues to provide the coroner services.
Motion to approve and execute.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
I just say with one comment, I'd like to thank our coroner for working very hard on this. And we'll give the coroner some space here in Carbon County, in St. Luke's. Obviously, this is at no cost to the county, which is huge. For the benefit of the press who is here, if you have any questions on that, directly behind Amy is Mark Smith, our coroner. So if you would like to ask, if you have any questions, you may refer them to him. But in the meantime, Mark, do you have any comments?
No, I just want to say thank you for the support of the commissioners in this very important service that we provide to the county. And I think it's going to go a long way and help us to grow into the future. Thank you.
We like things that don't cost us anything.
That's part of the goal here. With that, you may call that.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
Next for Mock Chunk Lake Park, seeking a motion for approval and execution of a special activities agreement for the use of Mock Chunk Lake Park by Jim Thorpe Sportsman Club Incorporated for the Children's Fishing Contest on May 18, 2024, pending a valid certificate of insurance and approval by the PA Fish and Boat Commission.
The motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
Next, seeking a motion for approval of a concession lease agreement between the County of Carbon and Lori Knox of Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania for operation of the boat rental concession at Mock Chunk Lake Park. The term of the agreement will be April 1st, 2024 to March 31st of 2026. Rent for the concession is $4,628 per year, plus $400 per year for electric, and this is no change in the rental agreement, pending a valid certificate of insurance.
Motion to approve and execute.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
Next, for the Tax Claim Bureau, seeking a motion to adopt Resolution 12 of 2024 for the appointment of Palmetto Posting Incorporated to perform necessary posting as required by the Pennsylvania Real Estate Tax Sale Law for the 2024 upset tax sale and the 2023 notice of return and claim notices.
Motion to.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
And lastly, on a related note, seeking a motion for approval and execution of amendment number 4 to the agreement with new rates for 2024 and 2025 between the County of Carbon and Palmetto Posting Incorporated of South Carolina. Perform necessary posting in order to comply with the Pennsylvania real estate tax sale law requirements.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Sefranco?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Any further business? Commissioners reports, Mr. Honor?
The only report I have is I got one thing. I hope everybody heard the end of my prayer. Thank a farmer VA today. That's it.
Mr. Notstein?
No, as far as the 911 report, we'll have Gary come to the meeting next week. You know, we don't have as much going on with the retirement board coming up. He'll be in person next week and we'll review it. That's all I have.
Mr. Sefranco?
The only thing I would have is for the 4-H that are here, I know as you looked at the agenda, we kind of went right through the agenda. And it's kind of, wow, you didn't discuss anything. Trust me, there was a lot of discussion on every part of this agenda throughout the week. And then we come in here and make statements or vote. And that's kind of how it works. So that's the best way I can explain it. It's how government runs more efficiently. You don't want to see us up here debating as we debate all the others. So we try our best to have that ready for vote time. Anything further? That concludes the commissioners' meeting. We will move on to the retirement board.
Oh, Andy, are you gonna be staying or do you need to go? Okay.
I can.
Good.
Okay, so the 4-H, okay, hanging around with it? Okay. Well, now you're gonna watch how Sarah Wilson for us handles $85 million.
Full house, nobody's running.
Yeah. No.
Earlier today, Sarah said that as soon as she stands up, everyone leaves the room. I said, that won't happen today. With that, I will turn this over to Kayla Herman, our. Yes, come on up, wherever you wish. You may come up if you wish and sit where Bob is.
I'm good right here.
Okay. Kayla is in charge of our. Oh.
Sarah.
Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting held February 15th, 2024.
Motion approved. Second?
Mr. Zelinka,
I abstained since I missed the last meeting.
Mrs. Herman, I abstained because I also missed the last meeting. Mr. Arner?
Here.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Sifranco?
Yes.
Are there any guests concerning retirement board business? There we go, we'll move on. There were no executive sessions held. Motion to ratify warrant checks number 41026 to 41033. Direct deposit numbers 7025680 to 7026100 for February.
Motion ratified.
Second,
Mr. Zelinka,
yes.
Mrs. Herman, yes. Mr. Arner?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
And Mr. Sifranco.
Yes.
Retirement activity report for February. There were 3 retirement refunds, 1 superannuation retirement, 1 voluntary retirement, and 1 death benefit. The monthly benefits was $496,836.77. Death benefits was $5,408.03. Refunds $17,282.18 for a total disbursement of $519,526.98. The portfolio value as of February 29th, 2024 was $88,322,889.50. As of March 15th, the portfolio value was $89,096.
Oops.
What? I mean, 89 million.
Wow.
96,294. That's what I was here about. There were no correspondence received. And today we have our investment managers, Sarah Wilson.
Good morning. Right, sorry about that, piling everything on you. So what I wanted to do is we'll quickly just touch on 2 things that you've got passed out, and then we'll delve into the report, look at how all the investments are going. So I did give you a welcome elected and Pennsylvania official. That is your fiduciary kind of handbook. Keep it if you've got any questions, but it explains Act 96. It explains how the pension fund works. It also has a lot of, terminology and everything with that. Kevin, you need a book. Okay. All right, so that's for you to keep. And then, as you know, every year Marquette does something called, and you've got that with you, called the Pennsylvania County Database. And we do this for every county, not all the counties that we have. We get everybody. And I want you just quickly to turn to page 14, and this is going to lead into your quarterly report. So if you look at this, your Pennsylvania County Plan Report on page 14. And I think this is really important. When you look at 2020 on there, this is when at that meeting that year, you decided to move over to the OCIO discretionary. And since then, your returns have been in the top percentile of counties throughout the state of Pennsylvania. So that has really helped you doing that, moving over to discretionary, enabling us to act in a timely basis. So I thought that was something really important. Look at, it's a lot of information in here, but I really want to talk about your fourth quarter, and we're going to talk about where this market's going. So let's turn to the quarterly report. And we'll talk about US equities just quickly, the market update on page 7. Everybody good? Just so you know, we have the YouTube channel. Get on there to look at the 2024 market preview, and also there's a lot of information on there. And just update, we're still 38 years in business. We added 2 new partners, so we've got 25 partners. We're 100% employee owned. And at the end of the year, we're 135 employees. So Marquette has really been growing. And I think, you know, since this is an interesting statistic, one is 52% of our 362 billion under advisement is public funds. So, I mean, this is really what we do. And the second thing, when we were going back and looking, during COVID, a lot of financial institutions laid off. You know, they were closing. We hired over 40 plus employees because we saw, and this is what we're talking about, this market is now really changing. It's a very different market. And we always go back, COVID, pre-COVID, after COVID, but that has really changed a lot of how this market's going to do. So let's talk about those changes. Let's go to Exhibit 2, the market environment. So remember, this is what happened in the fourth quarter to kind of explain your fourth quarter performance. But we know the Fed met yesterday. We know the S&P hit an all-time high. We've seen the Dow hit all-time high. So a lot of things have changed in the US economy, and this is becoming a lot of volatility that we're starting to see in the market. So US economic growth in the fourth quarter decelerated, with real GDP increasing at an annual rate of 3.3. So it was a little bit lower. We look at that on page 10, that top of the graphic, you can sit there and see that year over year, it started to go down. And then we look at unemployment. Unemployment currently is at 3.6%. And we look at what happened with, we thought, okay, so this economy is kind of slowing down, meaning that the Fed raising rates, remember, it was the lowest it's been in 2020, and then they raised all those rates, and now we're at the highest in 23 years of where Fed fund rates are at 5.25 to 5.5. So they thought, okay, they're going to go, and the probability is that they possibly could lower rates 6 times this year. That's where they thought inflation was starting to come down, CPI was starting to come down. Well, January, all the data came out and it started to rise again. So the Fed stepped back and said, we're not doing anything. So it came from thinking there possibly could be 6 cuts to probability of 75% that there's going to be 3 cuts this year, not starting till June. And then they will consistently maybe do 3 cuts 2025, and they will finally get to that 2.6 target rate in 2026. It's meaning that we are in for the next couple of years of higher interest rates. And we'll talk about how that affects the economy. When we look at where CPI is, that's core inflation and consumer spending, the consumer actually started spending more, and it was up slightly. That eventually, we believe, obviously is going to go down. So when we want at last year, and they really started to elevate rates, and you can see on page 11, we look at the inflation, it hit 9.1 CPI, and then it's gone down to 6.6. So we've seen what the Fed has done has gone down, but there's been a lot of economic growth. A lot of people think that the Fed is backward looking and not forward looking, meaning that they are, they're not going to cut rates. They want to see that inflation go down. But meanwhile, all the data's got to catch up with itself. And when we look at what's happening with interest rates, as interest rates go up, right now we see the consumer is starting to feel that, we were just talking today, this morning, about, how much food has doubled, tripled, in the past. The next thing that's happening is we look at the credit. And credit cards are now allowed to charge up between 29 and 30%. Back years ago, it was 18%. So what's happened is they're gonna start catching up. When the higher interest rates caught up, and started to go back up, most consumers had 30-year mortgages at very low rates. So we didn't usually, sometimes when we see interest rates go up, we see foreclosures, people can't afford their homes. Well, they were locked in at such low rates. What happened though is low rates to borrow money. So they've all gone and done credit lines. Those credit lines are adjustable. And now we've started to see the consumer really get into some debt. Savings were good in 2020. And now the savings are not savings. So that has changed the real estate. We'll talk a little bit about that, the dynamic, because to go in and buy a home right now, you're not going to go buy a home unless you really need to buy a home at these rates. So we've started to see rental properties and prices really go up. We started to see, because of interest rates, used cars, the average interest rate loans between 9 and 11% for the average person, and you're no longer seeing 3 years free financing. So it is going to start changing, but that effect's not going to have an effect still a couple more years down. So when we turn the page, we look at page 12, and we know we're a global economy. We look at the forecast for the global geopolitical risk. We'll just go over this. China, interestingly enough, their growth is expected to slow as the economy continues to grapple with a weak post-COVID. Remember, they went into lockdown again. And we look at what's happening with that. We know that 62 countries globally have elections this year. So that's going to change monetary policy. And then we'll go look at what happens. So we're really starting to see a little bit of a spike on the bottom of page 12. You saw the spike when we looked at December 21 of geopolitical risk. Remember, Europe was really suffering the same with COVID, interest rates. They all had, their money was not as valued as it should be. Germany's rebounded, we're starting to see some growth there. And then we also know we've got the Ukraine, which we did not expect the market. When we say we were talking about the market, did not expect it to last. And now the Middle East. So, and that becomes oil. Everybody gets very worried about oil when they hear Middle East there. So we look at how asset classes performed on page 13. And it was a nice year. We came off of 2022 was a double-digit down. So 2023 really had some strong performance, but in the fourth quarter. So the third quarter, we were in negative performance. Fourth quarter, we've done that. And you can see commodities are down because oil dropped their prices there. Emerging markets, international markets. Usually when we look at when geopolitical, we talk about all those countries changing. International has kind of really sat there and suffered in the last couple of years. International managers have not done as well. They're still doing it. But we believe that when you look at the rebound in economies, emerging markets and international markets, meaning your international managers should have some strong returns over the next couple of years. Let's turn to page 14. And we look at volatility, and this is going to have, when we look at your managers versus how well they have done versus the benchmark. Last year, you have to keep in mind, you have to put a manager against a benchmark so you can see where they are. The market was moved by 7 stocks, the Magnificent Seven, the Amazon, Facebook, Telsa. So you've got 7 stocks moving the market. We saw that happen in March of 2020, the 5 stocks. If you held them, you would have gone all the way up, then you would have gone all the way back down. So they have really moved the market. So the volatility has become increasing. So it's a lot harder for a manager who's not specifically focused on those 7 stocks to outperform their benchmark. So you have to take a step back. We know value underperformed growth. We take a value tilt that has done very well for you in a down market. The goal of this fund, as in a pension fund, is if the market does 20 and you do 18, you've done well. Our goal is the market goes down 10 and you only go down 8. We're to protect you. It's defense because of the long continuing funding that you've got to do. I just want to touch quickly on 15. Everybody says what happens during a presidential cycle returns. That graph, it's interesting. The 4th year is always kind of quiet when we have a presidential election. This may be a little bit different, possibly. We're going to see same candidates running again. But we look at the probability of meeting those returns. And when you look at the presidential cycle returns, I want to take you to, we look at probability 3 years. So we were 3-year look, and we had a nice double-digit return. The year before, which would have been 2022, the probability, that green dot, and we know we were double digits down with fixed income and equities. And then we look at year 4 when we look at projections, and this is historical data. This is not us projecting what we think the market's going to do. What we do is we look at all the historical data and look at the probability, 75% probability, and you're looking at a much smaller rate of return. So we always say, 5 to 7% is usually the 4th year, but that means it's a calm year. This is a very different year, and we've also got a lot of concerns going on outside of the country. Are there any questions on the market? All right, let's go to the next tab. We'll go to looking observations and looking ahead. So at the end of December 31st, you had the value was 87.2 million. You had a change for the 4th quarter of a return versus 8.1. You outperformed your policy index of 8. And then you had a net investment gain of 10 million for the year. You returned 13.8. And you were 13.8 versus the policy index of 14%. And remember, that's net of all fees, the investment manager fee, our fees. So that's a nice year at 13.8. I think I was sitting here last year this time saying if we can just get to 7%, we would be happy there, because that's the actuarial. For the 3 years, you did 4.6 versus a relative benchmark of 4.3 annualized and had a net investment gain of 11.8. And why do I say that 3 years so important? We believe those 3 years was like a mini market cycle. You had Fed funds at the lowest, now you've got them at the highest. You had COVID, you had an up market, and you had a double-digit down market. So when we look at the 3 years, how you did, you've annualized 4.6 versus 4.3. And I think when we start looking at these markets, those numbers, as we look at the 5-year, 9.2%, and then we look since inception, since we were here, average 6.9. We're going to start seeing a lot more of a harder to get to that 7%, but you've done very well there. We'll talk about what the managers have done. Your real estate manager has outperformed. Infrastructure has outperformed. Remember, you went into global infrastructure. That diversification has really helped you. Remember, that's an inflation hedge, and it also produces some nice income. Negative global equity, it's just what the market is. And then you have low investment manager fees of 34 basis points, which is very good considering the diversification. So any questions so far? Let's go to page 40. And we'll talk and go through some of the managers, the highlights there. So your US equity composite did 24%, and it is annualized since July 2009, 12.9%. We look at GWK, just had a tough year because they were small to mid cap. They are under US equity performance. They annualized 15.2, versus 17.4. We like them. Small and mid cap usually are the rebounders in the market. They're a very good, high quality manager, and they just slightly lagged for the year. Your global equity composite, Dodge and Cox was a little bit off for the quarter, 7.8 versus 9.2. But they were 20.3 versus 11.8. They're your alpha manager. They have done extremely well for you. You can see that consistently. And that May 20th, this is when you started to put in managers and you went to OCIO, the discretionary. They annualized 18.2 versus 12.4. So some very strong performance there. And then MFS low volatility has done well for you, 14.3 versus 7.7. This is what's interesting. You look at Artisan Global Opportunities. Remember, we talked about this. For the quarter, they've done 13.1 versus 12.7. Year to date, they've only done 23% versus 33%. Normally, everybody would be looking at us and we would go in and say, you know, this is time to get rid of this manager. Artisan, we had all their portfolio managers in. Remember, we've got research people on these. They've got performance analysts that get updates weekly from them. They were the #1 manager in their space. So it was just right. Because us consultants were like, oh, we can't get reliance, you know, this performance. But if you go look at the fundamentals, it was just where they were. Long term, they have done extremely well. It was just a very hard market to outperform. And that's when I go back to the benchmark. What's driving the benchmarks? What's driving the markets? And when you do that, they still produced 23% last year. It's just when you look at the benchmark, and we believe that you've got to look at the appropriate benchmark for each of them. If you turn the page, your non-US equity composite, we look at Fidelity Emerging Markets. Remember, we took Wellington out. We are going to be putting in a new manager in that space there. And then real estate, you look at real estate, they outperformed. Morgan Stanley has done well for you. Remember, real estate's down. So real estate hit 2020 and COVID. They had to readjust what they were buying. They've gone into like Amazon warehouses, you know, all of that storage containers, everything. Real estate in 2022 was the only outperforming manager in a lot of accounts and in your accounts. So when you try to rebalance you back to asset allocation, remember we do that every quarter and make sure that you're in line with your investment policy statement. You couldn't take anything out. You couldn't move from stocks to bonds or bonds to stocks because they were all in negative. So what Marquette did is we went into your real estate, we took some of those earnings off, and then we changed that you're now getting the dividends from real estate. Real estate is a long-term investment like infrastructure. It's not retail, meaning it's not little houses, it's huge corporate real estate. Now, the one thing that we've seen really go into real estate is rental communities. That is huge. So you've got all these real estate companies now buying rental communities, either condos, homes, everything, because the consumer doesn't have the 20%, they'll pay the PMI. They're not going to pay, you know, for a mortgage at 7%. And it's a very different generation going in and buying their first home. So rentals are becoming more and more desirable. So real estate for 3 years has done 6.7 versus 4% negative last year, of course, because interest rates were high. We're going to see it. But they have annualized for the last 5 years, 5.6. That's what we want. They're an income generator, and they're just 5 to 7%, and we funded half of that with fixed income. Infrastructure did 8.9 versus 7% for the year, and it's done. We put them in January 2023. If you turn the page to page 42, we look at fixed income. Fixed income for the last 5 years has done 1.4 versus 0.9. And when we look at C.S. McKee has been in there since July 2009. And this is the reason why you diversify. annualized 2.4 versus 2.2. They are your active manager. They've done a great job for you. But fixed income bonds are no longer giving you that 5 to 7%. So when you decide to go into defensive equity, when you decided to go into infrastructure and real estate, that has and global, and then take into OCIO so we can trade, we can get in and out of the market, meaning we always make sure you're at asset allocation. That has really benefited this fund. And then you can see we put you into Baird Core Plus Bond Fund that did 7% for the month and 6.9 year to date. So real estate, I mean, fixed income has really gone up. I think it's always interesting when you look at cash and you sit there and think for 1 year, it did 4.8. But consistently cash gives you about 1% annualized a year with up and downs with the markets. So I think you're in very good shape. You know, we don't know what's going to happen with this market. We've seen some all-time highs. We've seen some volatility. I think this portfolio has really structured in the way to take the volatility and handle the volatility. If we can meet your actuarial assumption this year at 7%, I'd be very happy. You've got a lot of things in play. We just have to step back and keep in mind that we have not really seen the effects of these interest rates being so high. And that's going to take a course of time there. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Well, thank you.
Thank you
Gary.
very much, sir.
Well, thank you. Any new business or old business to discuss? Any further business? Meeting adjourned.
It concludes. We will go question and answer. Amy, we'll start with you.
I'm good with you guys.
Wow. We answered all.
Second week in a row, I have a problem with it.
We're doing well. To the back, TV 13.
Talk about, is there any more update on the demolition of the building in Lehighton there on First Street? Anything
I
started?
have nothing further other than, I guess they're still waiting for the bond to be issued, or they had to get more line of credit, and that's where that's at. You can speak directly to our Office of Planning Development and ask for Jason Skrupkowski. I have no problem with that. He can give you an update.
Just how important was it to have, the 4-H group here and to, kind of celebrate them, make this their week kind of thing?
I will make a comment on that just because we are doing very good with our, with our finances here, with our, with the retirement, but I think it just goes back to what's happening here, even across the United States. Like if you talk to a farmer, what they're selling something for, and we have to buy a loaf of bread for $6. There's some gap in between there that has to be straightened out. I mean, that's a problem. I mean, the farmer is getting a couple cents for milk, and look what you get for a gallon of milk. It was never like that. I mean, it's like there's too big of a variation from the farmer to the consumer. And that's where I think the problem is. I mean, it's not, the farmer, they could pay the farmer more and still keep the product at the price that it is, because milk is regulated. They tell you what you can sell the milk for. You can't go on and say, okay, I'm selling my insurance and now I'm putting your premium up $300. They're not allowed that, luxury, you can say. And it's like, it's just, they're regulated, and that has to be looked into. I mean, and I think that's right. Here's a good example with farmers here today. Like there's too much of a gap in between.
It's amazing. I think it's amazing that the amount of people out there that don't realize how much work there is in farming. I just heard recently of people that thought they only milked cattle once a day. So, I mean, that's how, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but
No.
people don't realize that you gotta milk twice a day. They get up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and milk in the morning, they milk at night. And there's a lot of work involved in the meantime, and when it's time to milk, if they're out in the pasture, the cattle know when it's time to be at the gate, to be let into the stalls, to be milked, you know, so. In between, you're out there maybe baling hay or doing whatever you have to do, fertilizing or things of that nature. The amount of paperwork anymore, you have a lot of rules and regulations with DEP, and maybe Steve can talk about that a little bit through the Conservation District and Penn State, that you have to have your manure management plans. You gotta be so far away from streams. And so many other major issues that are out there. I don't know if you want to mention a couple of real quick, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, it's like right now in agriculture, I mean, like you mentioned the regulatory side of it, but one of the things that a lot of people don't realize too, like the last 25, 30 years, you know, agriculture has kind of been leading the conservation movement. You know, especially related to like water quality and, you know, nutrient management, manure management plans and things like that, because they realize, you know, the environmental impacts that it was having. And also realizing that if we're not doing this in a, you know, proper way, it's not gonna be continued. And even on the side of like pricing and, you know, just the state of agriculture in the country and in Pennsylvania as well. Most people don't realize it's less than 2% of the population that's doing all the farming in this country. So if you think about that, like, you know, 2% is feeding roughly 100%, you know, of our nation and also beyond as well. You know, we're a pretty big exporter in ag commodities. And on average, like farm income, like the last USDA census report came out and farm income, you know, went down again, even though prices have gone up. I mean, most farmers, it's roughly about, you know, 10% of dollars per item sold is what goes back to the farmer. So, I mean, and anybody knows in a business model, you know, that's usually not the margins that you're trying to sustain. You know, you're trying to sustain, you know, higher margins for those, you know, for what you're selling. So it's a tough, but thankfully there's people out there that do it because, you know, we're, like you said, thank the farmer if he ate today, so.
And like I said, I think it's one of the only businesses that they tell you what to sell your product.
Yeah, I
for.
mean, because a lot of it's
You know,
commodity
it's like-
price, so especially the, you know, the larger, you know, your, you know, corn, soybeans, milk, you know, it's commodity price, so.
The only thing I would say in reference to it is I thank the 4-H for being here and for all the volunteers who helped them throughout the year. And you know, when we leave here, it's 12 o'clock's gonna come around, we're all gonna go get lunch. And no one's gonna think nothing about ordering whatever we want. So maybe you wanna bow your head and say a prayer for the farmer out there. Because without them, we would not be eating lunch. So,
Kathy, don't we have a working farm in the county now that people can visit? Is that in operation now?
A working farm that people can visit.
Or,
I'm not sure what you mean, like an open gate tour type of thing?
yeah, like an open tour or, I thought there was a place in Lower Temensing that you could now visit. I think it was Lower Temensing or Temensing.
I'm not
County.
sure.
Yeah,
I'd
well,
like to know
I
about
know a
that
lot of the
myself.
farms up here, like especially in, you know, because agritourism is another, that's another like kind of hot topic in, you know, agriculture too, about, you know, letting people come on farm and see, especially, you know, harvest time, fall time, you know, pumpkin patches, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a, you know, because for farm, if they're selling directly to consumer, you know, that's usually higher profit margins for them, so it's advantageous. But you know, kind of one of the, I don't want to say positive, but one of the, you know, things that came out of COVID was there was general interest in where, you know, the food supply was coming from, because we saw, you know, what it did to the food supply chain, you know, of like shortages in the grocery store and, you know, people reaching out to buy more local products and things like that. Well,
I can say I've had having conversations with Dr. Fish from the Heighton School District, the superintendent, of the possibility of working with Penn State Extension and starting an ag program in the Heighton School District for the students. So that's just in the very preliminary stages right now. We're just looking at how it would work, and how it can benefit the county, especially since we have our $10 million bond for open space and farmland preservation. It's great to preserve that farmland, but we need somebody to farm it. And so we need to be able to have our young people want to be farmers.
And I think there are some farms that they can use them vouchers on too that we could out.
Yep.
So that's very important, like if you get a voucher, try and get the list of the farmer and try to support the local farmer.
Yeah, I mean, I was just down in, you know, the Allentown, you know, farmer's market that they have at the fairgrounds there a couple weekends ago, and like, you know, you'll see the, you know, the produce stands, they're advertising that they'll accept, you know, the benefits that, you know, you can purchase directly there, so which is good, you know, that's a big help, so.
Because the tomatoes are a lot better than coming from the docks of Philadelphia.
But it's, and the other, another kind of, you know, exciting opportunity, and it's happening in Carbon County, there's the, you know, the Little Leaf Farms up in, you know, Queens Township, and, you know, just some of the technology that they're integrating into their, you know, agriculture operation, and I mean, and it's, like, they're growing basically 4 to 5 varieties of lettuce, but, you know, it's fresh, it's grown local, and you're seeing it in a lot of the grocery stores, so. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot, you know, there's some, obviously, just like anything, you know, there's some things to be concerned about, but there's a lot of positive outlook, you know, as well too, which is good, so.
Anything further? Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Thanks for hanging around for the financial report. So it's good to hear that too.